Buck Levasseur showed us the Upper Peninsula for over 30 years. It's time for a look back. It's time for rediscovering.
Hi, baby. See you at the pole.
The Arctic Ocean was the most beautiful place I've ever been. And I've been in a lot of mountains. Snow always has been my favorite toy. Now I think it's my favorite art form too. To see what the Arctic Ocean can do to snow, how the ice would glow. And the snow actually would glow. And the sun has never looked more lemony yellow than it did on that snow.
Frida Wara of Marquette spent 3 grueling weeks on the Arctic ice during the winter of 2001. Up next on Discovering, we'll take another look at the award-winning program Polar Trek 2001 and see firsthand the 12 brave women who skied unsupported to the top of the world. So stick around. It's time for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone, forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields, call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Been there, done that, huh, ladies?
There we were.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Discovering. Tonight, we're going to turn back the clock to 2001. Now, during that winter, a group of women trained hard for a very special trip. They were skiing to the North Pole. They were going to become the first women to ever ski to the North Pole unassisted. Well, they made it, and we're going to see that video. And, of course, a lot of it was shot by my very dear friend Frida Wara, who was on that trip. So let's sit back and enjoy Polar Trek 2001.
And I saw in their monthly newsletter that a woman by the name of Frida Wara, which I thought was an interesting name, from Marquette, was planning to go to the North Pole. I read that and I said, not without me, she's not.
I thought about it actually for about 3 months before I did apply. And then I applied because I wanted to make sure that I really was, set on this. Read a lot of books and thought, this is up my alley, I can totally tackle this, and I'm ready for something of this magnitude.
Back in late January, the ladies of Polar Trek 2001 worked hard during a training session at Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. Team leader and veteran Arctic traveler José Auclair of Quebec, Canada, carefully assessed each team member's physical abilities. The group was also joined by one of Russia's most famous Arctic explorers, Dr. Mikhail Misha Malakhov. Came a long ways to come here for this week to help out.
Yeah, and just to do job to help craziest American woman to reach their goal to be on the North Pole.
What do you think of this trip?
I think it's quite interesting. For normal women who are not actually professional explorers, for women who are doing just normal routine job, journalists, explorers, and home wives, and I think it's quite challenging event to go to the North Pole, to ski to the North Pole.
Meanwhile, all winter long, Frida continued her physical preparation by skiing on Lake Superior with another Arctic veteran.
I'm the luckiest. I am the absolute luckiest. I have got the greatest ski trails. I've got this lake right here, which simulates the Arctic Ocean very closely. And I have Dan Hornbogen.
She's very well prepared. She's been planning this for a number of years. So I don't think that there's a mental problem at all. So physically and mentally, no problem. If there were to be a problem with that venture, it might be the weakest link in the chain, and it won't be Frida.
Where's my what? Sled's in Russia. It looks like it could fit in there, doesn't it?
Okay, I have a Catherine, a Robert, and a Laura.
Well, the day finally arrived for Frida to bid farewell to family and friends to begin her journey of a lifetime. Her first stop, Moscow.
Вечный покой, сердце вряд ли обрадует. Костя, все хором! Вечный покой.
With their new Russian friend Misha Malikov, the ladies tour Moscow and nearby Ryazan before boarding a long flight to the poor Siberian village of Katanga. Now, it might be poorer in this cold Siberian town, but the women here sure wear some nice warm furs. It's here in Katanga where final preparations are made for their plane ride to Borneo, the floating ice station.
Этот миг пролетит сквозь столетия, но не всегда по дороге мне с ним. Чем дорожу, чем рискую на свете.
The Borneo ice station is home base for several Russian pilots, and it's a stepping stone for Arctic visitors. It's comprised of only tents and will be home for the ladies of Polar Trek 2001 until their journey begins. Now, when Discovering returns, we'll talk to Frida about the ski adventure to the pole, and we'll see through the lens of her camera the obstacles they had to overcome. Stay tuned.
Rediscovering is brought to you in part by 906 Outdoors Cooking Wild Seasonings.
Oh, I am frosty, but I'm doing well. My tongue and my mouth are a little frozen, so it's hard to enunciate. But otherwise, I'm doing fine.
The ladies of Polar Trek 2001 spent several days near Borneo preparing for their ski adventure. Their time on the polar ice produced blisters and some frostbite, but their guardian angel was there. Misha Malikov, who when not exploring the Arctic, is a medical doctor. Well, Easter Sunday was spent with the Russian pilots, who in this isolated region really enjoyed some female company. But the time had arrived for the 12 women to go out on their own to begin their ski to the pole. On Monday morning, the ladies boarded one of Borneo's jet copters, which took them out to the 89th parallel.
Misha, I'm not going to have you anymore. So do you have some instructions? Last instructions. What can you tell me?
And just
just be yourself. Be very good like you are in normal life. And now you're more experienced and you know everything. Everything you need to have just to be patient. Good luck.
The ice is pushed together, okay? As long as you step on that, even if it's shovel snow, and you could go on it, okay? But right where it's dark there, it's water. You put your feet in the water, okay?
The women were now on their own. Their only link to the outside world was a special satellite phone on loan from the Navy and a shortwave radio. The women of Polar Trek 2001 were in the hands of one of the best, José Auclair, a two-time veteran of the North Pole.
Many years ago, when I came up in the high Arctic, I was the only woman, or very few women have been traveling in those regions, and it's been. I just feel that it can be as much as a woman's. If a woman desires to come to a place like this, she can do quite well. Sometimes even better than a man. And I just felt like this is kind of cool to bring a group of women in those regions and a group of women that are not top athletes, just normal women, and they can do a trip like this. I feel a great pride of leading a group like this.
Pressure ridges like this one require a human chain to get their equipment over the top. And crossing leads or open water require a great deal of skill to determine where and when. Whiteouts and extreme cold are also the enemies of Arctic travelers. Well, early on in the trip, one of the women got hypothermia, but the leaders had been trained to detect it, and they acted quickly.
And I was having a real hard time coordinating myself even to walk at that point, and that's when everybody put the tent up, and it was fine as soon as I got warmed up a little bit.
The polar ice cap itself drifts. Navigators realized it was drifting west faster than they were traveling north, so they stepped up their pace. Now at this time of year, it's daylight all the time, so it was no problem for the team to ski 24 consecutive hours just to catch up and keep their dream of reaching the North Pole alive.
It was a very long ski, and we were very tired, and the whole group was very focused, and I'm the one who said, okay, that's it now, we're gonna stop. I'm tired, I have to go to bed, I have to rest. It has been a long ski, and up to that point, none of you girls had complained whatsoever, and we had skied something like 15 hours without much stopping. It was a long ski, and for somebody that is not a top athlete, that's quite something, yeah.
During the expedition, many of the ladies had polar moments. Frida, as strong as she is, was no exception.
Even all the reading I've been doing over 7 years' time and all the physical work still did not prepare me mentally. Misha told us many times, the Arctic Ocean wants you dead. And you could hear someone say that, and you knew it was, the significance or the seriousness of what we were really ready to embark on. But Buck, I didn't realize how true that statement was. And basically it dawned on me when we arrived in Borneo, the very first night we were on the Arctic Ocean. And the day was wonderful. I had tears streaming down my face and a lump in my throat because it was so beautiful. I was where I had dreamed of being. And we had a wonderful dinner. We met these Russian pilots and their hospitality was great. And I went to bed that night joking with my tent mates. Everything was wonderful until I climbed into my sleeping bag and this curtain of doom came over me that was really turned into like an 8-hour anxiety attack. I never anticipated that. And as a ski racer, you learn to try to have mental focus and be able to push away the negative and fight through fear. That fear had no holes in it that I could find. So it really became a battle inside me that everything in me wanted to go home. And the next morning, Misha was still with us training, and he explained to us that this had been a physical journey up to this point, and from now on it was going to be mental. That our brains really didn't know how to process where we were. Nothing was like I'd ever been before. It was 24 hours of daylight. All the sounds were different. All the sights were different. For all practical purposes, I could have been on the moon. And then the cold, I mean, we've all been below zero here, but this cold was so encompassing. Every single thing you did, you had to remind yourself you couldn't expose your flesh for long. Everything would just seize up. It was a paralyzing cold. And yet to keep warm, you had to keep moving. So there was, right from the start, I had a huge mental hurdle. And thank goodness you could ski. Skiing warmed my body, and skiing also gave me something familiar. And I really thank God that I had trained with Dan, and he tried to tell me mentally what I might be facing, but there really was no way anyone could prepare you for that. We called them polar moments. I think everyone had a little bit of that, but I think for my own, I've never been so scared in my life. We never had heat in our tents just to stay warm. We primarily had to use the stoves to cook. That was a long time,
What sort of temperature fluctuations were you talking about?
35 below Celsius we measured. I don't know exactly where that hits on the Fahrenheit scale, but I think it's pretty close to 35 below. The Fahrenheit and Celsius scale starts to meet about that point. We never had an accurate reading on wind speed to really know what our wind chill factor might have been. But there was wind many days. Many days were calm. One day we had the wind totally at our backs from the south, which is very unusual, but it was glorious. And I do know we reached zero and felt really warm. I think here the difference between 30 degrees and 60 degrees is basically 2 seasons. 30 degrees primarily winter, 60 spring, summer. And it's a huge difference. But I'll tell you, the difference between 30 below and 0 is now more significant to my body.
You had to overcome a lot of physical obstacles, in other words, geographic obstacles out there. Why don't you give us an idea of some of those things you perhaps didn't quite expect?
One of the things that we really found was that it's definitely not a straight shot to the pole. And even though you want to stay at a longitude line, which is primarily at 118 degrees longitude to 120, good ice, good snowpack there. Right off the bat, we had some navigational errors, things happened, and we found ourselves in an area of a lot of rubble ice and open water. And that kept driving us south and to the west. And not only was our path leading it that way, but the drift was taking us that way. And there's a magic line. If you end up going west of 80 degrees longitude, you're on a quick drift to Greenland, and you can't ski faster than the drift is taking you. And we found ourselves out at 78 degrees, and it was a real push. Not only because we had to beat the drift, but then of course the drift meant the ice was breaking up around us as well. And Jose was miraculous at getting us through that. She had basically 10 inexperienced skiers. She and Jen were the strong ones that knew where to go, but they still had to guide 10 other skiers through that. And it meant we did a full 24 hours. We slept for 4 and we pushed on for 12. And when we did get to the pole, no one expected us to make it.
We did it!
We were in Borneo from the 9th of April to the 28th, and we ended up reaching the pole at 4 a.m. on the 24th of the 4th month. I thought that was pretty significant. So you reach this spot, and then how much do you want to keep chasing numbers? Or do you just settle in your heart, you are at the top of the world?
Frida Wara of Marquette had something that most of the other women on the trip did not have: a mentor who is an Arctic explorer.
here to Tanqueray Fjord.
Dan Hornbogen of Marquette has been studying the Arctic for years. Ever since his first trip to Hudson Bay, he's been hooked. But Dan's automobile dealership and his family took center stage, at least until a little over a decade ago when he retired.
Yes, it's been a long time that I've been interested in the Arctic. In 1947, I went to Hudson Bay. Always wanted to go back. Finally, one of my sons bought Rent-A-Wreck from me, and so in 1990 I went back. And I've been going back every year now for 10 years. I've gone back about 15 times to the high Arctic. I've worked my way north most of the time, further north, further north. The pole was never an objective, but I have been there. But I enjoy being with people in the cold. I enjoy the Canadian people. I enjoy the native people, the Inuits, my work with them, and of course the animals. And the Arctic site is so beautiful. The scenery in the Arctic is, one has to experience it. You asked me once if there was something I would do over about going to the North Pole, and yes, there is. I would go at age 60 instead of age 68. So I'm 74 next month, and I'll still be going north, and I enjoy it. But that would be the commitment. I would get into it earlier in life.
So you've made some changes.
Dan spent countless hours advising Frida on equipment and helping her get used to the heavy load she would be hauling. His patience and experience helped Frida see her dream come true.
At 95, and he is a fabulous mentor, a willing teacher, has read every book, knows every trick, and he's really willing to train me and teach me. And we've been actually doing this for a couple years. And you know, when you go down to his workshop and he shows you how he's refabricated his boots or whatever it might be, just making me practice putting on my pack and taking it off. Those kinds of things mean a lot, and I'm really the most fortunate of anybody in the group because of where I live. There is no place on this planet like the Upper Peninsula.